Welcome back, everyone, to Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And this show, if you're new here, is focused on reconnecting with nature, discovering who we really are, and finding our highest form of expression as our really natural AF selves and who we're meant to be. Mm-hmm. And this episode is a very special one to both of us, but it was very exciting that we started off the year. Our first interview of 2025 is with Barbara O'Neill.
The one and only Barbara O'Neill. We were just blown away. And there's a bit of a story behind it too. It was very unexpected. So I think it was the day after New Year's Day. You know, we're in full holiday mode. We're actually waiting for my brother and sister-in-law to arrive that day. And we got a call from our friend Mick, who does Barbara's social media management and also organizes all her podcast interviews. And he was like, "What are you doing?" We're just like, "Oh, we're just at home, you know, just waiting for my family to arrive." And he's like, "Well, Barbara's got an available time slot. Do you want to fill it?" And we were like, yeah. So we had like 45 minutes notice to get ready, get online, get mic'd up, and interview her. So it was very unprepared, but it was a great conversation.
Yeah, sometimes those are the best, where you just spur of the moment.
Yeah, and it just flowed. It wasn't, because it wasn't an interview as such, but we just, it was really a fun conversation. We had some laughs with her, and it was such an honor to get to meet her, or, you know, albeit through a screen, but she's just so authentic. Like, and again, that's what we're all about here at Natural AF. And she's just like who she is. Like, it doesn't matter where you've seen her, whether it's a lecture or she's talking to 1,000 people on stage, or it's just a little social media video. She is who she is. And she's just so lovely and sweet and just really wants to help people. She's so genuine.
Yeah, she doesn't hold back. And sharing her story, it was nice to hear that, you know, person to person. I've heard snippets here and there, but it just meant a lot to me, because for those of you all that don't know, so our business is Natural Art Form. Our podcast, Natural AF, is an offshoot from that. And when I first started it, I years ago, I'd seen Barbara O'Neill after I'd gone through special operations combat medicine training, and then I'd also done a survival course where we learned about plant medicines and using pine needle tea and all that stuff. And I maintained a curiosity about it. And every now and then I'd YouTube, you know, how to make this or that naturally, or what's a natural remedy for this. And I would always see Barbara O'Neill pop up, and I'd watch some of her stuff and I'd use it, and I'd show my mom that and my daughter, and they ended up using, I don't know if it was a recipe from her, but they started using rose hips and making syrup with it for cold and flu season. Anyways, that just was on the shelf for all these years. And then here, coming full circle, someone that inspired me by showing us how simply you can make these remedies, and how powerful nature really is, and how we're designed to integrate with that, and that we can actually heal ourselves from some pretty serious conditions with things that are very, very simple.
Yeah.
And
so it has been a full circle moment for us, hasn't it? Because she was really one of Isaac's early inspirations to start tinkering and making natural remedies, and then, you know, birthing Natural Art Form. And for anyone that doesn't know, we have our flagship product, Alleviate, stocked at the Misty Mountain Health Retreat, which is owned by Barbara, and a very good friend of ours works there.
Yeah.
And so even that, like getting it stocked there, we're like, oh my God, like this is so exciting. But then now, having interviewed her and having gotten to know her a little bit more on a personal level, it was really, really wow. If that's the start of 2025, I can't even imagine what's to come for the rest of the year.
Yeah. We'll continue to uphold the values that we set out with Natural Art Form, making things that are simple, pure, and powerful, things that actually work. And the flagship product that Alexa is mentioning, Alleviate, I developed for a shoulder injury. I had a partial shoulder separation, and the rotator cuff is a very intricate piece of machinery in your arm that's just difficult to heal once it gets injured. And I had that injury on and off for several years, and the doctors were giving me 800 milligram ibuprofen, which is, the typical thing that even, trauma medics know about that we just use all the time. And it actually slows down the healing process, which I found out later. And I was done. I was getting ulcers in my mouth. I was having white spots on my fingernails show up from using that so much, and the shoulder wasn't getting any better. So I started looking into other remedies, found out about DMSO, magnesium, and just was like, what are the best? I think I Googled what are the top anti-inflammatory herbal oils, because I needed something for a lotion recipe, and found the best, the ones that I could find, and continued to seek and find the best sources for those, the best companies that made the best extracts. Put it together. It worked. It totally replaced that 800 milligram ibuprofen, and the shoulder began to heal itself naturally. And since then, we've had a lot of really good reviews back from it from people with arthritis, even people that have had massive nerve damage or conditions that affect the nerves, like fibromyalgia and things like that. So,
and it's just really good for, like, I always say we use it kind of like a first aid cream at home, like bruises, bug bites. It can even help take the itching away on bug bites, or if you're someone that swells up from bug bites, it's really good for that. Sore back, sore knees. That's a lot of our common complaints from customers. Just all the stuff, all the little aches and creaks and things that you get around the body from time to time. You just put it straight on. And
it really is kind of like a Swiss Army knife of remedies. And I saw a lot of potential early on too. The original name of the product was Leg Day, because I was using it after leg day at the gym, and it worked really well. It would reduce my delayed onset muscle soreness by about half. Usually it would last me, if I really hit it hard, I could be sore for like 4 days. Instead, I was sore for 2 days, which is pretty significant. So I've had other people with similar results from that for sport performance.
So we're operating across 2 countries, which is almost unheard of from a business our size. But we do have supply and fulfillment set up in the States still, just for Alleviate. And then here in Australia, we offer some other remedies. So we've got a couple of scents of natural deodorant, which is also getting really good reviews from people, and a skin repair and sunburn recovery lotion, which we're just about to relabel. We've redesigned the label, which we're super excited to launch coming up in February.
Yeah.
So for anyone that would like to order from us, for our listeners, we offer 10% off your first online order using the code NaturalAF10. And we are now also shipping overseas out of the US. So we just did our first overseas order to Singapore. So that was super exciting. So
thanks so much to whoever ordered that. That was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
And I hope you're loving the product. And let us know how it goes.
Yeah. And jump on our website and join our mailing list. Even if you don't order any products, join our mailing list, because we do have a lot happening in 2025. So to stay up to date with what we've got going on, whether it be new products, especially because we will be introducing those products in Australia into the US market. And what's going on with the podcast. We'll kind of do a monthly newsletter to keep people updated. So head to the website and join the mailing list. Now, the format of this podcast is a little different to how we normally do it, because we had such short notice, and I didn't have a bio ready, and we only had an hour to record with Barbara. We normally have 90 minutes, so we wanted to make the most of that. I'm going to read her intro now, and then we're going to get straight into the episode. Barbara O'Neill is a distinguished health educator, author, and speaker renowned for her expertise in natural therapies and wellness. Born and raised in Australia, Barbara's passion for health and natural living was sparked early in life, pioneering her emphasis on natural healing methods. She has since become a prominent figure in the wellness community, conducting seminars and workshops globally on topics such as nutrition, detoxification, and disease prevention. Barbara is the author of 2 influential books on health and wellness, Self-Heal by Design and Sustain Me. Her writings reflect her deep commitment to educating individuals on how to take control of their health through informed choices and natural methods. With over 5 decades of experience in the field, Barbara has dedicated her career to promoting holistic health principles, emphasizing the importance of diet, lifestyle, and natural remedies in achieving optimal well-being. Barbara O'Neill's enduring influence in the field of natural health is a testament to her unwavering dedication to helping others lead healthier, more balanced lives. Her work continues to inspire and educate people around the world, advocating for a return to natural healing and the power of the body to heal itself.
And we're so honored to have Barbara O'Neill here with us today. It's our first episode into the new year, and I would say this is quite a good start.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Barbara.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, and we've actually got, so your latest book, Sustain Me, which is great. We use that as a handbook at home. And then we've also got The Assassination of Barbara O'Neill, which is written by your husband, Michael O'Neill. Very interesting story. So let's kick it off and give you the floor. So for anyone that doesn't know you, who I don't think that's anyone, not anyone we know anyway,
Right.
Just share a little bit of your life story and I guess the most significant life events that led you to the work that you do today and where you're at now.
Well, it's an interesting story, and I guess repeated here and there by different people. I was brought up in your average Aussie home, thinking that the only bread in the world was white bread, and everyone in the world ate sausages or chops, mashed potato, and frozen peas every night.
Right.
And when I was sick as a child, I got bronchitis once or twice a year. I was taken to the doctor. He gave some cherry-flavoured syrup, and I had that 3 times a day, and after a week I'd be well. And I think I'm like most people, that's the way you're brought up. And then I went into nursing, same thing. If someone's got a fever, you get rid of the fever. Someone's got a cough, you get rid of the cough. And if I got a cold, I'd go straight to the doctor, get antibiotics. I never questioned it. And I think that's one of the problems today. No one ever questions it. And it was probably when I had my first child. She was 16 months old. I was about 24. She got an earache. I went straight to the doctor, put her on antibiotics. Everything went well till I stopped the antibiotics. The earache came back. Now, this happened 4 times over 6 weeks. At 6 weeks, the earache comes back. I'm back to the doctor because I don't know what else to do. And I'm thankful to God for that experience, because I've experienced the frustration of not wanting to give my daughter any more drugs, knowing it's not working, but I don't know what else to do. And I don't know where else to go. So as the doctor is writing the 5th script for antibiotics, I said to him, will my daughter be on this for the rest of her life? Now, he was challenged by my question, and I sometimes wonder, are they ever challenged? I'm sure they are sometimes, but I guess they're in a predicament if they don't know what else to do. So he sent me to an ear, nose and throat specialist who looked in Emma's ears, looked in her mouth. He said, the child's teething. Give her these drops to keep the eustachian tubes clear, and all was well. So you can imagine 2 years later when my next child gets an earache, about 16 months,
Right.
I do not go to the doctor. I do not tell anyone, because what happens then is pressure. You've got to go, she'll go deaf. So, of course, people run to the doctor through fear. Well, I was 25, 26 by now, and the old lady next door was 85. So I went to her and I said, what did your mother do when you were a little girl and had an earache? She said, Mum would steam up an onion on the stove. I ran home, steamed up the onion, wrapped it on his ear. He slept for 2 hours. I don't think he's ever had another earache. But that changed my life. That changed my life. I immediately was confronted with the fact there's something else. And I don't know anything about it. And I actually don't know anyone else, except that old lady, that knows anything about it. So I was like a woman possessed. I've got to find out. I went and looked at books about the American Red Indians. I had a look at a lot of traditional medicine. I read and read and read. And it was probably about that time I was also reading the Bible, and I became a Christian. And I then thought, how does God see this? How does God, the creator of this body, what does he want us to do when we get sick? Does he have a way? And that also opened a whole other area of natural treatments. And really, that's how my journey began. And I can tell you that I had 5 more children, well, 4 more, I had 6 altogether, no more drugs, no more doctor's visits, no pediatrician. I just did the natural remedies. And now I'm in a position where I can help that mother. And that's my book, Self-Reliance Design, shows the true role of microorganisms in disease. It actually shows that COVID was nothing to fear because I looked at
Right.
the true role of microorganisms. And then my recent book, Sustain Me, I designed it to be a handbook on natural remedies so that really every home had a book. And I'm not the only one that does it, I'm sure there are others, but I wanted a succinct book, not a huge encyclopedia, but just a book that you could reference at the back. My child's got a fever, my child's got a cough, my child's got diarrhea, what can I do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I thank God that it's out.
Yeah. What I love about that book is it teaches these principles, and it's almost like if you learn the principles that undergird just how the body works and how we're designed, how we're created to heal ourselves. Yeah, it does lessen fear quite a bit, and it gives you the confidence to stand up and just be like, there is a solution for it, even if the exact specific one isn't in the book. You know that there's one out there. You just do a little bit of digging, and I believe you'll find it.
That's true, no matter what its name is. And I'm actually quite surprised at how many names people are given today. That's why I say,
Right.
don't take on the name or the title.
Yeah.
But just look at your symptoms and investigate different things that you can do to relieve the symptoms.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love your story too, Barbara. Like, it really resonates for me because I believe that some of our greatest challenges are often what turn into our greatest gifts to give to the world. And I've had my own health challenges. I had breast implants for almost 8 years, and last year we're in 2025 now. So yes, it was all definitely last year. I became really unwell. And it was because my implants, these implanted medical devices that, God certainly didn't put there, were making my body really unwell. So I had to make the decision to take them out. And that was quite an extensive surgery. So that whole journey for me was really difficult. But at the end of the day, I'm with you. I thank God for that experience because it taught me a lot about really how to truly love myself. That was the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, and that's so important. Love who you are, love where you are, love what you have. And
yeah,
my personal assistant, the same experience. She had her breast plants of 4 years, which she was always sick. When they were taken out, the doctor didn't say this to her, but the nurse did. She said they were moldy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little scary. And she's quite slender. And she said she could never get warm when she had these implants because they're always cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that you don't think about. And that's what I say to women. Just love what you have. Love who
Absolutely.
you are. And I haven't met a man yet who likes them. So
really, yeah.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm excited for, because today we have Alexa's brother and sister-in-law and their new baby girl. Well, she's a year old now, but I just love that. So they were the first ones to buy your new book, Sustain Me, but they're starting off this little one's journey on this path. And I'm just really excited for women like Alexa to be in her life and to just give that love to her and share that lesson and hopefully encourage her to just love how she was made.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's right. I think God made our brain so that we love a challenge.
Yes.
And I never tell people what to do. I say to them, try this. I found that this worked. And that's why your story of your breast implants, that's the story. And you would be shocked at how many women have found the same thing. And it's actually a scary thing that those things are toxic.
Absolutely.
Probably now realise my PA was reading a book and she said it had many stories in there of women who major health problems from when the breast implants were there.
Yeah, well, I dove into researching. Yeah, it was really, a lot of my research was listening to other women's stories, and thankfully there are a few doctors out there now that are actually researching this stuff. So the surgeon that removed my breast implants is actually researching this, so that it can actually be recognized, because, like a lot of things in the medical community, they don't want to look at it. They don't want to acknowledge that it's a thing, that it's an issue. And it's terrible. And at the end of the day, I mean, they put the label of breast implant illness on it. And that's, again, just to give it a name. But like you said, don't get attached to the labels. But at the end of the day, it's a foreign object in your body that's not meant to be there. And naturally, our bodies are very highly intelligent, and they know when something's not meant to be there, they're going to do everything they can to get it out. So, again,
they know when something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we live in incredible bodies that have this amazing inbuilt ability to adapt and adjust. Now, that adaptation and adjustment at times can be wonderful. At times, it is not wonderful. But the poor old body, it's just trying to cope with what's there. It's like the mercury amalgam filling. It shouldn't be there. Shouldn't be there.
Yeah. And so for the time being, we've still got this very powerful medical system that has a lot of influence, and then that could be downright threatening. And I know that you've faced some backlash from, I'm not familiar with the Australian organization, the HCCC, but is that shifting? Do you feel like that's like the pressure's coming off a little bit, or have they let off of you at least?
I don't know. It's hard to know. The last email I got from them was about 5 months ago, where they've had another complaint about what I am claiming and selling on Facebook. And with great delight, I wrote back and said, I am not on Facebook, and I sell nothing on Facebook.
Right.
But the strange thing is, well, it's crazy. They said they have looked at it and they've decided it's not worthy of investigation. I mean, what dictates what they're worthy of investigation? I would have liked them to investigate it. Maybe they could have exposed all the scams that are there. But I remember it was only a few months after I'd been banned, I was reading in the newspaper about a group of surgeons who'd put a complaint in about a colleague of theirs who'd had 5 deaths in a year, and from operations he's done.
Right.
This is about 4 of his colleagues, and you know what the HCCC said? It's not worthy of investigation. And me,
terrible.
The people that complains about me have never met me, never been to our retreat. In fact, I say, how can there be a crime if there's no victim?
Absolutely.
It's all, goat's milk could be lethal. Michael said, can you show me where there's been a death? Well, while there's been no deaths, there's a possibility. How crazy is that?
Yeah. Absolutely wild.
So it makes no sense. And what we also discovered is that the HCCC are accountable to no one.
Yeah.
So their decision, which was a decision that was made on possible maybes, is absolute.
So is this your version of the CDC that we have in America? Is that the HCCC?
No, I don't think so. I think the CDC, the Centre of Disease Control, is more looking at figures and stats on diseases, whereas the Healthcare Complaints Commission, it was set up to regulate fraud, really. Doctors who are claiming this, but there's been a few deaths, so they need to be investigated. But there have been no complaints from anyone who's been to our retreat. We believe that it happened because of my husband's political party. It's called HEART now, Health, Environment, Accountability, Rights and Transparency. I think they took me down to get at him. We can't explain it any other way.
Yeah. Was that, so I was just flipping through it. It's like the pressure began and started building up in 2018. And did it really come down on you in 2019 or more towards the start of COVID?
It was before COVID, actually. An interesting time. It was July 2019. Michael began his political party, I think it was 2016. So it was 2019, before there was even a whiff of COVID in the air. That's when they banned me. After the Inquisition, I mean, their tribunal where they questioned me for 2 hours. At
Right.
the end of it, I wasn't in the room. It was just Michael and the lawyer. And the lawyer said, "You've got nothing on her." Now, this lawyer sits through these things all the time. And Michael said, "Does that mean she'll get off?" She said, "No, she'll get a life ban, but she won't go to jail and she won't be fined because, they can find nothing on her." How crazy is that?
It just goes to show how it's just all about bureaucracy, and you see it time and time again in the medical industry and the medical industrial complex, I should say. Because one of the first things that comes to mind is what they do with vaccines. Like, none of the science shows that vaccines are safe or effective, and that's the mantra is safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. And millions, probably billions of people, especially now after the COVID era we've just been through, billions of people around the world have been damaged, some permanently injured. They've died as a result of vaccines. And what they tell you is there's no truth or fact in it whatsoever.
That's true, and it's crazy. But you know what I find everyone responds to? Because I believe a lot of people were blackmailed into the vaccine. But what everyone responds to is the fact that God's government is a government of freedom. Freedom is based on free choice. And it's my God-given right that I choose what I do and what I do not do to my body. And to know what to do to my body, I need to investigate. And so I say to people all the time, if you're being told you've got this, you must do this, you say, "Thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to seriously consider this." And you leave with a smile says you've got confidence. You're going to seriously consider it. And when you begin to investigate, it's crazy. And Isaac, you mentioned fear before, that a lot of people make decisions on fear, and that should never be. That should never be. And in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 in the Bible, it says, God's saying, "I've not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." Knowledge is power. A sound mind, basically, is your mind weighing up the pros and the cons. So what if I do this? What will happen? But what if I don't do that? And what if I... Weighing it up, having time. Time, because disease doesn't spring up overnight. It's often many years in the making.
Yeah.
So you've got time to look. You've got time to consider. You have time to do that because it's my God-given right. And no one can take that away from us. And whenever a government comes in with a mandate, that's warning signs. That's warning signs because that's not how God works.
Yeah.
God gives us the honour, the respect to choose what I do and what I do not do with my body.
Yeah. I had so many difficult conversations during that time because my family is very, very Christian. I grew up non-denominational, evangelical type Christian, and some of my brothers, yes, there's very, very honest, very hardworking people, but also I don't know what the word is. I want to say compliant, but it's not to say that's a bad thing in the way that they live their lives. But it was like the fear that the government put on them was like, you have to do this, and some of them believed it, some of them didn't, and the ones that did gave a bit of a Christian reason for it, saying that like quoting Romans. Maybe perhaps misusing it, but saying that God told us to obey the governments. And that's a difficult one to have because I don't agree with that translation.
Well, let's apply it to Hitler. Let's apply it to
right.
Stalin. These men were despots. They were, they're responsible for the death of millions of lives. And so that is one verse. But there's another verse that says we ought to obey God rather than man. And there are many verses that say that I must not defile my body. Well, let's have a look at what's in these vaccines. Is there anything there that could defile my body Oh, well, there is. There are neurotoxins, there's formaldehyde, there's aluminium. So God gave us a brain to be able to weigh up the pros and the cons. And, so you can't just use one verse out of the Bible.
Right.
You
I
must
agree.
actually balance them all.
Yeah. And I like to say the path to freedom is on the road of responsibility.
That's right.
And God's given that, right? Like you said, this ability to discern and to look at the weigh the options.
That's
But sometimes the path to freedom from what the government mandates you to do requires ultimate responsibility on your end to bear the consequences if you go against them.
That's right. And that's why I love that verse, because a sound mind considers all of these things. We should not be rushing in. And the amount of people have said, if I only ever had time to think, well, you actually have got time to think. You've got time to weigh up the pros and the cons. And as I said, there's so many people now that regret having the vaccine. They greatly regret it. But if they'd had time to think, and God doesn't work on fear. That's why he says in that verse, I've not given you the spirit of fear. So I say, well, who has? It's not God. Hasn't come from God. And what do you fear? What is the biggest fear here? And that's why my book, Self-Heal by Design, it's been out for, I think 2010 it was first printed. It's still selling as much. And I think it's because it shows that we don't need to fear a microorganism, because microorganisms are everywhere. You can disinfect the whole house, disinfect the body, just about kill the body, because these microorganisms are an important part of life on planet Earth. And if there are pathogenic microorganisms, we need to ask, why? Is it because you haven't emptied the garbage for a while? Is it because you haven't washed your body for a while? Is it because you're not drinking enough water? There's always a reason. So that gets to the basic law of science, is to every action, there's an equal and an opposite reaction. There's always a cause. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think we're shifting out of this old paradigm now, I think. And, especially with what we've been taught with modern medicine and modern science. And I remember I studied holistic nutrition, going back maybe 7-8 years now. And I remember learning that we have more bacteria in and on our body than we do actual cells of our body.
True. That's true.
And that blew my mind. Wow. Yeah. And then since my studies, I've actually learned so much more, because then I've gone down the rabbit hole of virology, and, that it's these viruses aren't what they say they are, and we don't really know. And there's actually a lot about the human body that we really don't know fully. Yeah. But science tries to tell you, no, it's like this, it's XYZ. But when you actually look at the science, it's not. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense, and it's got to make sense, and it's not rocket science. And the other aspect that everyone responds to is that I live in this body. I live in this body, and I don't have to have a PhD to understand how it works. And no one knows my body, and that's why I believe everyone should be their own doctor. Because only you know what you've been through, only you know how your body responds. And that's part of being your own doctor, is listening. And if the foot hurts, we need to have a look at the foot. We need to put it up. We need to try a poultice. We need to, it's like my back, we need to rest for a couple of days. I've read a book a day in the last 3 days. It's time to stop and listen to the body. And a lot of people are listening more to the authorities than the body, and yet the body is a very intelligent organism, and it knows what to do, and it needs you to respond. So it's a whole shift in education, really. And I think it's our responsibility to know a little bit about the house we live in, to know about the microbes, to know about how the kidney works, the liver works. You don't have to study it in great detail. But, sometimes it's a great idea to get child's anatomy and physiology book and start with the simples and the basics, and not trust totally in medicine. Now, if I had a car accident, I'd be very thankful for medicine. I'd be very thankful for pain-killing medication and for anaesthetics that knock me out while they set a bone, etc., etc. But the fact is, drugs don't heal disease. It's only the body that does. And yes, in a crisis, a drug may hold a place, but they don't heal disease. An orthopaedic surgeon said to me one day, he said, "Barbara, I can set a bone, I can't heal the bone."
Right.
Now, some people might say, well, that's very obvious. Well, but I think so many people think the doctors are the healers, but they are not. I'm not a healer. I'm a teacher. It's the body, and the body alone that heals. And I think that's why the HCCC found it very hard to take me down, because I don't claim anything. All I do is teach and try it, see what works. If it works, the body's saying, "I like that. Can you do that a little bit more, please?"
I love that.
It's that simple. And Alexa, that's what people love. And I think that's why my information has exploded, because people are starting to see, actually, this isn't working. You know, the medical paradigm, may have a place in certain situations, but it's actually not working. And here's a lady on the internet that says, if I cut up an onion and put it on the bottom of feet overnight, I'll stop coughing. That's attractive.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the simplest things that seem to make some profound changes. I know my father grew up on a dirt floor with an outhouse. They grew up in New Mexico. He was part native, and they were just living very close to the land. And they had these simple remedies like what you talk about and what you teach. And they still come in handy. He had one when they got an upset stomach, when they were vomiting or diarrhea a lot. They would have, onion, sugar, salt, and water. And if they didn't have the onion, they just do sugar and salt and water. And one time when we were in Texas, we had dogs that had gotten parvo, which is, for people that don't know, it's like a stomach virus, they say, and it makes them have diarrhea and vomiting, and they'll die from it. The vets all told us that there was no cure for it. Like, you just gotta, basically you have to put them down or something crazy. And my dad remembered that remedy. We put salt, sugar, and a little bit of onion and water, and took a syringe and just squirted it in their mouth, and they were recovered fully from parvo with no other medical interventions.
There were some very, very simple things that you can do, and it's putting the power back into the hands of the people.
Yeah.
And before it was taken down, there were quite a few doctors that would get me to go to their towns and teach these simple things, because they knew that it would lessen the traffic jam in emergency. In emergency casualty places, the average wait is 8 hours. It's just chocked up with people with a sore finger. They vomited, they've got a fever, just real simple things that every nurse and doctor knows. They roll their eyes and think, they should be able to access the real emergencies.
Right.
I'd like to even suggest that up to 80% of those that visit these places need not.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when I broke my arm last December, 2023, and I sat in casualty for 6 hours. I was in the most excruciating pain because my bone was out of place. That's why it was so painful.
Oh, yeah.
My wrist looked weird. You could tell something was very wrong there. I knew it needed more than a poultice. But I sat there for 6 hours. I didn't see the orthopaedic surgeon for 6 hours because the whole system, I just sat there and watched them. My heart's racing. I've got high blood pressure. I thought, no. They say that we are an enlightened age. I really think we're a dumb age. We don't
Right.
even know how to look after our bodies. So,
Yeah. Well, isn't it something that you used to say? I think some of the first videos I saw was like rule number one or step one is stop poisoning yourself.
oh yes, stop the
I,
poison. Stop the
yeah.
poison. And rule number two is sit down and think about it. When did this
Yeah.
Yeah.
begin? When did this begin? When did you first? You got to investigate. And you're the best person to do that. With Medicare, the poor doctor's only got 15 minutes with you. How much is he going to find out in 15 minutes? We
Yeah.
need to go back. That's why I say to everyone, document your case. Write down everything you remember, everything you know. Ask your mother. You know, your birth, what were you fed, any sicknesses, any reactions, da 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 da. And you can start to get a little bit of a pattern there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is like that's what I love about your book. It's funny, when I bought it, I started reading it, and then I got to the first chapter and I thought, oh, actually I really need to read this from beginning to end, because like you said, it's meant to sort of be used as a handbook. So as you need it, you go to the part that you need to read. And it's just really about getting back to basics. And that's one of the things that when I came out of my studying nutrition, I learned so much more just doing my own research into things. And I've just found that the more that I studied, the more I looked at health. It really is about simplicity. It's about getting back to basics. It's about eating a very simple, whole foods, nutritious diet. It's not about, like you said, stop poisoning your body. Get rid of all these foods that have 50 ingredients in them and numbers and words that you can't even pronounce. Like, that's just literally poisoning your body. So you get rid of that, you get sunlight, you drink good quality water, you get good sleep. It's all these very simple daily things that we can do that make
Very
us
simple, and it's cheap.
yeah, that's right.
I'll tell you a quick story, a bit of a scary story. A lady contacted me recently from Europe, and she said, my son's got cancer of the penis. So I'm immediate.
Ooh.
I've never heard of such a thing. So I
Yeah.
said, how old is he? Did anything happen? She said he's 43. And she said they want to amputate.
Oh,
So I
goodness.
said, so no 43-year-old man wants to lose that. So I said to her, tell me a bit more. Well, there was a lump on there a few years ago, so they cut it out, but the wound wouldn't heal properly, so they did another operation. Then they did another operation, and the wound got bigger and bigger, and it wouldn't heal, so then they did a biopsy. Cancer! And
Right.
what's their answer? Amputation. So they said, we've spent a fortune on this, we've gone here, we've gone there. And I said, it's time to get it in the sun. Just wash it, put it in the sun. 5 minutes, 4 times a day. Get some aloe vera, very, very tender area. Aloe vera is very soothing. And get 2 buckets. Sit in the hot for 3 minutes, the cold for 30 seconds, 3 times. Do this 2-3 times a day. So that costs nothing to buy the tubs.
Right.
He's a smoker. I says, well, you've got to stop that because that inhibits oxygen to the extremities, and that part of the man's body is an extremity. So, you've got to, is he drinking adequate water, da, 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 da. Do you know, the last I heard, for the first time in years, they've got improvement.
Wow.
Now,
Very good.
I said,
Yeah.
I don't know the future. I don't know where this is going, but, that's something you can try. Everyone can get 2 tubs and sit in hot and cold water, and that's a treatment that's been used for thousands of years. Tried and true remedies. And then it was probably about 20 years ago. I met a lady in Singapore in her 80s, and she trained in Sydney in the Sand Hospital in Warrawonga, and she was taught hydrotherapy. So what's that? 80 years ago, nurses were taught water therapy. So this excited me, and then I discovered the textbook. It's called Abbott's Hydrotherapy for Nurses. That's what they used to do. That's what nurses used to do. They would do water treatments, but I guess it went out of popularity because it takes time and so much easier just to give a tablet. But I love that that you can actually direct people to simple, natural remedies. And often when the medical professionist says we can do no more for you, do you know what the doctor said to them when they said, no, we're doing that? He said, you'll be back in 2 months.
Right.
So that the discouragement, the where do we go? And here are some really simple things.
Yeah, and I think a big one they do that with is cancer, because often when people are given a prognosis, and studies have actually shown that when people are given a cancer prognosis, this huge percentage of people will usually die within the given time frame or less. And it's because it comes down to belief. If you believe what they're telling you, your body's going to respond to that belief.
You don't know how many times I say, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
People are challenged by that. I say, do you know, sometimes I get it wrong. It's not necessarily so.
That's right.
You know, that you've got to question, and unfortunately the way we're moulded through media, through schools, through the medical profession, we're moulded to have absolute trust. And the only reason Hitler and Stalin got away with what they did is because the people that worked under them had absolute trust in them. And I found this wonderful verse in the Bible at Psalm 146, verse 3. It says, put not your trust in princes. So I say, what's a prince? When the Bible was written, the prince was the authority. The authority in government, the authority in medicine, the authority in nutrition. It says, put not your trust in them. It doesn't mean you don't hear them. It doesn't mean you don't listen to what they've got to say. But what you do is you analyse it.
Yeah.
That's why I say to people, always say thank you so much for your advice, because I guess they're giving you the best they know. But it doesn't mean you have to do it. It doesn't mean you have to believe or totally trust in what they're saying.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And just that simple knowledge about the scripture. It doesn't take a theologian to go through and interpret it for you. Like I kind of approach that in my family the same way, where we read it and we kind of understand it at our level, and that's good enough for us. And I was wondering, the simplicity, the way that you look at medicine or just the body and natural health, does that simplicity cross over into like child rearing and relationships as well?
You know, absolutely. And God is the author of our being, is the author of our mind, our emotions, our body. I believe he meant it to be simple. It should be very, very simple. And Michael and I are alarmed at a lot of adults now that don't quite know what to do with children. They don't quite know how to raise them. And my husband's a storyteller, and at Misty Mountain, lunch with the guest, he's always telling stories. Also stories about our children, how we raise them. So we've had a lot of people say, you need to do a series. Finally, we've done it. And we did it last year. We did it in Germany in a studio. And
cool.
On my website, selfhealbydesign.com, you can download our 6-part parenting series.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's simple. It's very simple. It comes back to respect, and man and woman, they're absolutely unique. And yes, God created man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he opened Adam's rib, took out a rib, and he made woman. He didn't take it from Adam's feet, meaning that she would be under man. He didn't take it from Adam's head that she would be above. The rib, side by side. I think it's a beautiful illustration. And men and women are so different. I always laugh and think, I don't know how we can ever live with each other. We're so different.
That's so true.
Very, very different. But when you look at the life of Jesus, he came to serve. And if we have that mind of service to do as much as we can to make life better for our partner, for the ones that we love, if everyone had that attitude, there wouldn't even be any road rage, would there?
Right.
Yeah.
And how about passing on this love of natural remedies to your children? Is that, because I find sometimes the kids will pick it up and expand upon it, and sometimes they'll get sucked into the urban lifestyle and the Starbucks and the fast food. So how do you get the next generation to explore this?
Well, I think that as you live it, you teach more by the way you live and what you do than any other thing. And I guess I had the advantage of homeschooling. My children were all brought up in a rainforest and no technology. That's a big advantage. And even though they're all away from me now, they're living in cities because that's where the work is. When I visit them, they say, "Mum, come and look at my tomatoes. Mum, come and look at what my basil is doing. Have you found that your basil does this?" And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because the Bible says you train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. It's in the very grain of my children, and I noticed that they don't rush their children to the doctor. They just use common sense. Now, the people they have married, the people that they are with, weren't brought up the way they were. But I find that when they are tender, when they have a confidence, let's try this, let's try that, then it's not long before the partner, the spouse, they see it. And my children have a confidence because this is all that they have ever known. I know when my son William was about 17, he said to me, "Oh, I tell all my friends what to do, but I have to stop saying Mum said." Saying, "Mum, who's Mum?"
Right.
I love that.
Now I seem to have a voice of authority now, but back then no one knew who Barbara O'Neill was.
I love that. But you're so right, because we've been raised very similarly, my brother and I. So just a quick overview of sort of our health journey was I was vaccine injured as a child. My mum didn't really know until I was about 4. She started researching. She knows Meryl Dorey from the AVN. They've been friends for almost 30 years now. And so when she started researching vaccines, she realized that's why I had been really unwell as a child. And then she never vaccinated my brother. And so from the time my brother was born, we were like super, super healthy. So say mum got into all like natural remedies, just buying really good quality food and making all of our meals from scratch, no store bought, junk food and processed foods. And so my brother's been raised that way since his birth. And now seeing with his partner, she was the same, very much raised, like very medical. Her, family just goes to the doctor for everything. Seeing the shift in her over there, they've been together, almost 10 years now. And now they've had their first child who they haven't vaccinated, and they use everything natural for her. And it has been actually really beautiful to see the shift in her, because she's even seen when my brother would say, "Oh, try this, try homeopathics, try, this natural stuff." She had a massive change in her own health. And now it's beautiful to see them pass that on to their daughter and their future children.
And that's where a confidence is raised, is as you do it and you see the results. In 1 Thessalonians 5:21, the Bible says, "Prove all things." I like that. It's a challenge, prove it. And then it says, "Hold fast to that which is good." In other words, prove it. If it works, you just keep doing it. And it is lovely to see that. But going back a little bit with COVID, and Isaac, you were saying about some of the people in your family, very medical. I think COVID split a lot of families. And I know that one of my sisters is very medical. She's a doctor of archaeology, and I think it was about early 2022, she said, "We are only receiving vaccinated people into our home now."
Wow.
Now
Yeah.
I don't like what it did there, but I understand. I guess she thinks I'm deluded. Maybe I think she's deluded, but we have actually got together at a wedding since then, and we talk about the weather.
There you go.
My new dress.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, and I do understand so many people were taken in by this. And it's lovely to hear that your brother's wife is starting to see it and starting to do it. Because that's what you can always say, oh, the child's got a fever. Well, let's just try cooling them down with water. Let's just try this. Because when you realise the average wait in hospital is 8 hours, sitting in that room with people coughing and maybe vomiting all around you, wouldn't you just rather be in your own home and
Yeah.
know that water puts the fire out? Let's just do the simple things.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you get results, then the confidence builds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. The confidence is key, and that calmness, the way that you talked about it, and
yeah,
being tender, or being, just saying
that's
things
right.
not in a abrasive way.
That's
I'm
right.
still learning the fine art of that.
Well, it is hard when you're passionate about something, and it is hard when a loved one is making a decision and you can see disaster.
Right.
It's actually accepting, well, it's their God-given right. And there's a book that we sell by Wendy Daniels. It's called The Myths and the Facts of Vaccines. So I say to the guests, don't say to your relatives, read this, because they won't. What you say to them is, let me know what you think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way. Yeah.
You're not pushing it on. You just say, I found some very interesting things in here. And what I love about Wendy Daniels' book is she doesn't put her opinion in there. She just gives the facts.
Yeah.
She just gives the facts. And when you give the facts, then you leave it with the person. But I think the tragedy is that there are so many parents with damaged, maimed, even dead children that are now very, very sorry. And I know that, and you know that. And how do you tell someone who's thinking of vaccination? So if anyone says to me, should I vaccinate? I say, I'm not going to tell you what to do. What you need to do is investigate. Investigate what's in these vaccines. Even go to the chemist and say, can I have a printout of what's in them? And then if
Right.
you're still unsure, take a piece of paper to the the nurse or the doctor who's going to vaccinate and say, would you please sign this that you will be accountable if there's any reactions? I can tell you
Which they never will.
I can tell you right now, the vaccination rate would drop right down.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're already seeing that vaccination rates have dropped, like childhood vaccination rates are dropping since COVID, which is very interesting. People are definitely.
That's a blessing. Do you know in America there's areas where there's Amish communities, and the Amish do not vaccinate their children, and
Right.
the incident of autism, attention deficit syndrome is so minor. It's something like 1%, whereas, well, some figures say 45% of our children
Wow. Yeah.
have autism or are on the spectrum. Now, that's alarming. 70
That's
years ago,
huge.
it was 1 in thousands. So these are figures that we can't deny. So you see those simple one-liners I just gave you, they're good ones to give people. But I say you do a little bit of fishing, you put a little bit out and you watch their response, and their response will tell you just what area you can go. Some people's response, you just...
Yeah.
Nice day today, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because I do social media management for the AVN, and a lady actually reached out recently and asked, she had a doctor's appointment coming up for her child's, the next scheduled vaccine, and she'd obviously been questioning things and she didn't know what to do. What to say to the doctor, and again, same as the AVN, we can't tell anyone what to do. We can't give any health advice. However, you just have to remind people of their rights. And I just replied to her and said, all you have to do is ask them for, like what you said. I'll consider that. I'll seriously consider that. Thank you for the information. I said, ask them for the ingredients and make a decision based on the ingredients, or Like you said, you can have them sign off and say, I'll give them the vaccine if you're going to take full responsibility for anything that happens after. And I think that it's really, that's what it needs to come back to, is just people knowing that they have these God-given rights to have full autonomy and authority over their own body. I think that's been, not that it's, you can't even say it's been taken away. People have given it away for way too long now, and they think that that's the norm.
And they've given it away in ignorance, really, not realizing this wonderful treasure that God has given to us. It's not seen as such, but it is something that we should defend. Even our life depending on it, because it is so valuable. And I know a quote from Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Guard your Constitution well." Which is our Constitution, their protective laws. And that's one of the reasons my husband started his political party, when they said parents can only get so much of the family payments unless they're vaccinated. Michael said, this is wrong. And then it was a year later, they said children couldn't go into childcare unless they were vaccinated. My husband said, this is against the Constitution. Someone has to do something. So we live on a beautiful property, where I'm 71 now. My husband is late 60s. We could retire. We could put our feet up and enjoy our beautiful property, but we feel a great responsibility to educate people, to make a stand, to do something. And Michael said at many political rallies, he's followed by all these ladies with babies in baby carriages saying, "We love you, Michael. You are fighting for our cause."
Yeah, that's amazing. And people like you, both you and Michael, are so needed, especially at this time, because I think it is about education first and foremost. And I think that's one of the first steps to taking full responsibility.
It is. It's giving power back to the people, and they have every right to have that power. It's their God-given rights. So when the HCCC came with the conclusion that I was a threat to public safety and I have a life ban on me, I'm not to give any health advice. And of course I'm sure you realise nothing I've said today is health advice.
Sure.
That I'm forbidden to give any health advice, I'm forbidden to speak on health, or $10,000 fine and 10 years in prison. And how crazy is that? So Marcus said to me,
it's wild.
He said, well, you can retire, your retirement age, or you can go overseas. And I said, I'll go overseas because I feel so good. I feel no different to what I felt when I was 40. Body and brain work well. I've never had so much experience. I've never had so much knowledge in my brain. I believe it would be wrong for me to stop now. And so I'll go. So 2025 will be the 5th year where I will be travelling for 9 months of the year. So people say to me, how do you do it? I say to them, there's a formula. I've discovered a formula. I've put it in the acronym Sustain Me. And if I abide by those basic principles, they sustain me. And I found a beautiful Bible verse that confirms that. It's Psalm 55 verse 22. Cast your burden upon the Lord and he shall sustain me. He will never suffer the righteous to be moved. So I have no fear, I don't know if there are threats on my life, if there are, don't bother me, because I know that, and as Michael Griffin says, we're following orders from above. And if my time is up, I say, thank you, Father in heaven, I'm looking forward to the rest. And if my time is not up yet, I say, thank you, Father in heaven, I know that no man can touch me if you have a work for me. So that takes away all fear, which is a very nice way to live.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love that. People can find all those books we'll post the links in the show notes, but Sustain Me is a wonderful way to live.
And honestly, Barbara, we say it all the time, the banning, what Australia's done by banning you was actually probably the best thing that could have happened to you, because you've just exploded. Like, we have not met. We do markets on the weekends and you'll come up in conversation, and that's all. I don't think we've met anyone that doesn't know who you are. And I'm like, it was the best thing that could have happened to you was them banning you.
I know, and it is absolutely crazy, because Australia never has had so much of my information and since I was banned, the world.
Right.
You know, no matter where I go, in every airport, every plane, everywhere I go, without fail, I see people staring at me, and I smile, and they go, "Are you?"
That's so funny.
And people say to me, doesn't it wear you out? I said, never. I'm excited to see the way that the information has gone out. And back to Psalm 146, you know, in verse 9, the Bible says the ways of the wicked God can turn upside down. And he did cause this ban to actually be turned upside down, because it's like getting a starfish and cutting it to pieces, cutting into 20 pieces. You've now got 20 starfish.
Right. Yeah, I like it too in the States, and people here probably know about it too, but the Barbra Streisand effect.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what that was about, but I call it now the Barbara O'Neill effect.
We call it the Barbara O'Neill effect.
When someone tries to ban you, it's like blowing a dandelion. It just spreads it.
Yeah.
It just spread it all. And, you know, in 2021, when I was in Germany at a conference, a lady came up to me and she said, "Barbara, I'm sorry to say this, but we are so glad you were banned, because it's freed you. It's freed you to come to us." And, you know, the light bulb went off in my brain. The ban has freed me. It hasn't inhibited me at all. It has freed me to go to amazing places, and, you know, to be in the palace of kings and princesses, in politicians, in famous people. It's just incredible how far-reaching this has gone.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, well, this is actually a perfect way to finish, because we did want to ask you, what's ahead? Is there anything in particular planned for 2025? Are you just going to continue doing what you're doing?
Well, 2025 is very busy. I'm totally booked out. We're starting to take requests for 2026.
Yeah.
And yes, it's everywhere. On the 20th of January, I go to Dubai, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks, and then I go to America. When I'm not attending retreats anymore, because if I run a retreat overseas, maybe there's 14 or 16 people, but if we do public meetings, there can be between 400 and 600 people. So it just means that more people are reached. In fact, I was in North Carolina. A young man who owns a business called Simple Needs. It's a gluten-free sourdough bread, and his business has exploded. I often talk about it. He said, "Barbara, you've caused my business to explode." But he put on a series in North Carolina in a little town called Denton, and he expected 100 people, and 2,000 turned up.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So
I'll have to tell my uncle to go look them up. I have family that lives out in North Carolina. So.
Oh, true. Simple Needs, KNEADS. That's
cool.
Nice.
simpleneeds.com. But it's beautiful bread. And he's making between 6,000 and 8,000 loaves a day now.
Wow.
Good on him.
Yeah, he's great. But they ended up having to go to this like hobby farm that had this huge auditorium, and we managed to fit everyone in.
Wow, that's incredible.
So, yeah, it's quite incredible how it really has exploded.
Yeah, well, you can definitely see God's blessing in your life, and you know, between you and Michael, and pretty much just everyone you interact with and touch. And just out of curiosity, how have you found it in the in like Dubai and like these Arab countries, receiving someone that's more of a Christian perspective and speaks openly about it? Do they push you back?
It's quite incredible. We've had some members of the royal family request my presence in the palace, and
Wow.
I just love what I'm doing, and I talk freely about God. And
That's awesome. Yeah.
and so one of the attendees said, "If the royal family is for you, no man can touch you. If they are against you, leave Dubai."
Good advice.
Yeah.
But whether it's a homeless man on the street or whether it's a princess in a palace, God is no respecter of person, and neither am I. They are all very precious in the sight of God. So I don't mind if I speak to 3 people or 3,000 people. Um, everyone is precious, and that's why I do not mind people coming up to me. I do not mind them wanting my photo, my signature, because they are all very precious, and I love their stories. That's when you read the life of Jesus. His one-on-ones. They were very powerful because every single soul is precious in His sight. And if I decide I don't want to do this anymore, God will raise someone else up. I am not indispensable, and I trust that with my information, there are a lot of next generation Barbara O'Neills coming up. We would like to see one in every town, one in every state, one in every country, because this is not my information, this is God's information.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, well, we're right there with you, and we're so grateful that you would come onto our show and speak your message. And
we just absolutely love your philosophy and who you are. I mean, you live and breathe everything that you talk about, and like you said earlier, you lead by example. You teach people in the way that you live, and you're such a beautiful soul, and you have such a beautiful message to spread. And thank you so much for coming on.
That is a pleasure to do that, and my one aim is that I am able in some way to represent the beautiful God that we serve.
All right. Well, I would say you're doing a wonderful job at that thus far.
Absolutely.
So it just shows the power of God that He can use a human being.
All right. Well,
Okay.
That's all I guess we'll do for today. We'll leave it there. But thank you so much for popping on here and having a chat with us.
Right, it's been a pleasure. Thought I was speaking to America for a moment there, Isaac, but then he's got the Aussie accent.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of my Texas brethren, we thank you mighty, ma'am. That was a fun interview.
That was so much fun. Surprise. I love her. She's just, and that's what I loved about her too. She's not like super serious, and she's just so relatable. And like I said in the intro, so genuine. And I really want to get her on again because again, not a lot of notice before the interview. There was so much more I wanted to go into with her and ask her. But yeah, she's a very busy woman, so we'll try our luck again.
Yeah, I'd love to get her and her husband Michael on.
Yeah,
that would be a really cool show because he's quite a character, and I just think they're both so brave, like what they're doing, because there is a considerable amount of opposition from the government in Australia against them both politically and on the health side, or on the health side if you're in the medical world. But the trip that they've taken, like they've gone all over the world. The more they try to be suppressed, or the more the government tries to suppress them or tell them they can't speak what they feel is true, the more everyone else is just like, well, we want to hear what they have to say then.
Well, and it's also like, it's just funny because they banned her in Australia and the royal family in Dubai are asking to see her. Yeah. Like, it's just the comparison of those two worlds is just wild. But again, I love her perspective and her outlook because, like she mentioned, and I can't remember the quote because I don't know the Bible, but something about, she quoted the Bible about how the ways of the wicked transmuted by God. That's not the exact quote, but like...
Well, there's a few ways it says it, like no weapon formed against us shall prosper.
Yeah, I know that one, but the one she quoted, it was just such a perfect example of that because, the ways of the wicked, she's been banned very unjustly. And then, the proliferation of her work has just grown exponentially since that happened. So, and I do think that God's hand is in that. And that's one of the things I actually really loved about this interview. And I love about her because she kind of sprinkles, these little bits of, wisdom that she pulls from her faith in God and from the Bible. And she's very open about that. And, we've got her book, Sustain Me, and she puts little, quotes from the Bible in there. And for someone that's I don't come from a religious background. Like, I've never read the Bible. I don't know it that well. I do actually find it very inspiring when I listen to people like Barbara, or people like Cal Washington, and Nick Patterson from the LFM, and the way that they, they use the Bible and some of the verses and the quotes in there in very practical ways, like the way that
really
you can, and the way that you can apply it to your life. And it doesn't come from this super dogmatic, judgmental, a lot of people that have these religious beliefs, and are quite staunch about them, are very judgmental of others that don't believe the same thing. But I love the way that Barbara just shares it. And, it's like, you take it or leave it. She doesn't care about that. It's just how she shares her message. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah, she holds to the tenets of that, because my mom's a lot like that as well, where she reads the Bible all the time. She doesn't get on to people for not reading the Bible all the time. She doesn't judge other people for not living the way that she's living. She just lives it out and just shows it, just leads by example. And more people should do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. I said that at the end. I think
whatever it is, whether it's, your diet, the way that you eat, the way your worldview, just have your worldview and live the best life you can, and just show by example whether or not what you believe is good for you or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about her. She lives and breathes everything that she talks about. And he's just so humble in that. Like, there's so many people, especially now, that have come up, in the last 4 or 5 years since COVID and speaking out about, truth, but then they get, their ego also grows. And, with that comes a lot of, projection, and they actually become quite less humble. What's the opposite of humble?
Arrogant? I don't know, prideful?
Yeah, it's almost like they get this inflated sense of self where they think they're better than others because they're teaching others. Whereas, Barbara's just so humble, and she's like, whether I talk to 3 people or 3,000 people, they're all the same to me. And I just think that more people should be like that in this space. Yeah,
absolutely. Barbara would say, she would quote the actual verse, which I don't have memorized, but pride comes before a fall. Is a proverb. So
another one. There you go. I've got to say, I whenever I hear people like Barbara, I said it after we saw Cal Washington speak, I think at the festival, I was like, I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to do it. And then I just don't get around to it. It's a big thing. I don't know how long it would take me to get through.
I don't know. We'll start that. It'll probably really start affecting you. Like, you'll really start looking more at that when we have kids.
Yeah, I think I said that actually, because I've said it a few times. I really want to read the Bible, and I was like, I'll just wait till I have kids, and then we can teach them, and take the nuggets out, and leave the rest, because I still am pretty sure that there's a lot in the Bible that's been manipulated and things that have been taken out, and I don't think we've got the full thing, but that's what it's all about. Take the meat, leave the bones, as Dave Armstrong just said recently, and I love that. I love that saying, because just use your own discernment. You don't have to take everything and apply it to your life with dogma. It's all about taking what works for you, leaving what doesn't, and just being a good person, being the best person that you can be.
So one of the things we wanted to point out was where you can actually go to find the real authentic things from Barbara O'Neill, including the 2 books that she's written. If there's any other books besides Self-Healed by Design and Sustain Me, if they're not by those 2 titles and they're not from their website, basically they aren't real.
Yeah, there are books out there, which I think they addressed in a recent social media post where Barbara was laying it out that there are books out there with her name on it that have not been written by her. She has no knowledge of them and what they're about. But they're not her. There are a ton of fake social media accounts that are either under the name Barbara O'Neill or some are under Dr. Barbara O'Neill. They're pretty much all fake. She only has 2 legitimate social media accounts. One is on Instagram. One is now on Facebook. So she mentioned in the interview that she's not on Facebook. That was at the time that she got the letter from the HCCC. She now does have a legitimate Facebook page, and we'll link those in the show notes. So just know that they are the only social media accounts that she has.
Yep. Nothing on TikTok, nothing on Red Note or whatever the kids are doing these days. So, yeah, click those links, follow her there.
Yeah.
And
the link to her website too has her books available. There's like cookbooks from the Misty Mountain Retreat, The Assassination of Barbara O'Neill, written by her husband, Michael O'Neill. That's also on their website. So anything that she's actually selling is on that website that we've linked in the show notes.
So thank you all so much for listening. We greatly appreciate it. And if you want to share this episode, we'd appreciate that as well. Like, share, subscribe, sign up for our newsletter to stay in the loop on future episodes and future product launches, especially as we begin to bring some of our products from Australia back to the States, like Refresh deodorant and Regenerate, our skin repair. So,
yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you in the next one.
bye.
Bye.